This segment relates again to the edit buttons. I've been working it for quite a while now, but through reading stuff from Architectural Study again, which is Life on the Screen by Sherry Turkle, I was looking into the concept of AI and how things exist with superego and smaller sub-control panels. And the way this made me think was, along with my edit functions and other parts of the project, is you've got the one controlling function that then calls upon lots of little functions beneath it, kind of like in a concentric circle. And the way this is going to work for this edit thing is using these two examples. I'll show you them each one after another. This is the first one, its functionality. What it does is it prints the amount of text that's inside the text box. Yeah? And to know that, it's giving it tracing testing attributes.text, which is from a text file as a dynamic text box rather than, no sorry, this is from the XML. So this is basic reading from XML to read attributes from XML, which shows that it's connecting properly to the database. If I go to this panel, you can see that it knows to connect to the XML and where the XML is, which is pretty important because I need to be able to draw my information from the XML. If we go into Flash testing text, which is already open here, you can see that this was one of my other initial ways of doing things, which was to use text files with text format for the entire text box. Now the problem we have with this, if I cycle through, the problem with this one was that it tended to affect an entire text box. If you see down there, text box, no matter what I select, it'll bold, and move it out of the way so you can see. It'll bold and unbold the entire text box. But what it does do up here is it records the start position and end position of the cursor, which was important to me because I needed to be able to make sure, just look at it again, see? I needed to be able to make sure that I was recording the right areas so I could pass them into variables. Now testing 5, take things a step further, which is it uses a slightly different way of doing things in that it edits the text area and puts HTML tags around the text area for a dynamic text box to read through the HTML. Now I need to use it slightly differently because I need to use input boxes rather than these things. But if you say select the bold word and click, it unbolds the rest of it. Click test, it'll bold test and unbold the other two. Now the problem with this is though that it shows that yes, it reads the HTML, but it's editing an entire text box. So the way around this is to have a class function and have all my buttons for my edit bar, as shown on the second page, with different class numbers combined. So B is 1, I would be 2, but if you had bold and italic at the same time, that would be 3. And what it does is it stores, if you say you want to bold test, the second test, what it'd do is if it wasn't bold originally, let's just unbold it so you can see. If it's unbold it, that at the moment would be considered text 1 in the HTML. If you then decide, oh, I want to bold test, what it does is, in that process there, it would cut the word apart, so it detects the start point and the end point of the selection, and cuts everything after that into the clipboard, system clipboard kind of thing. And it then selects the section that you'd originally selected here, cuts that into a separate part of the clipboard, so you've then got text 1, clipboard 2. Clipboard 1 then gets made into a new child variable of text 1, so text 1, bold 1, and then that gets given a class of 1 for bold, whereas the normal text is a class of 0. And then the second bold is formed into text 2, or it might end up being text 1 again. So it's like sub childs inside a parent. And then that again would be given a class of 0. And then when it passes the text out back into the text area, it knows that to evaluate the equation. So it evaluates text 1 with the class, text 1 bold with the class, and it goes through with an array. And the class functions, let's get rid of that, the class functions add in the HTML tags. And then if you decide that you want to unbold something, slightly more complex, so you wanted to unbold just T, there. It'll detect if any part of your selection exists within a different entry than the first entry. So if your first entry, the character start ID and end ID, it starts it has any number that is not within the earlier boundary. So test 6, okay, let's explain it better. That first boundary there would be characters 1 through 5 because it counts the spaces. If you then select that, you are effectively selecting text character 4 through character 6. Character 6 is over the end index of text 1, therefore it counts text 2 as the primary, because it will count anything with a class above 0 as the primary, as the one to affect. And then if you say, I want to unbold this selection, or you click bold, it doesn't matter if you want to bold or unbold, first of all, it'll unbold, it'll clear any class. It then makes the class, it cuts that part away and makes the class 0. It cuts the T, the first character, so characters number 6 through the rest, by taking off the characters from the previous section. It'll then cut that to the clipboard, cut the text 1 to the clipboard, and then reevaluate them back into text 1. So it becomes what would look like this. So you've got that part there being text 1, then you've got text 1 bold 1, and text 2. And that should work throughout the entire thing. I'm just not quite sure how complicated it's going to get in the XML with it creating its own child nodes, and whether or not it's going to eventually be too many to control. But that's a problem I'll come to soon enough. It's quite a large part of coding, but it is one of the major features I'm going to need. I'm going to work on that now, and I'll post some more after I've got that done.